Hello YouTube, got one of my favourites to do today, triple changes. There's something about them that gets Transformers fans' juices flowing. I don't know what it is, but any multi-mode Transformer, it gets us all excited for some reason. Most of them don't really succeed 100%. The only one I can think of where every single mode is pretty bloody good is Six Shot. Quick switch, maybe. So I don't think his robot mode is as successful as Six Shots. There are problems with the head and the fins on the back and whatnot. These general stats makes him look like he's soiled his nappy or something to that effect. But generally speaking, multi-mode Transformers don't always work. I think the classic example is Robots in Disguise, Megatron or Gigatron or whatever the hell you want to call him. He's got lots of names. He's supposed to have 10 modes, all in all, or rather the Galvatron mold, which was used for our version, the Western version of the Megatron color scheme. The only difference was apparently there's one minute difference, and it allows him to have several other modes that aren't terribly meaningful, to be quite honest. And that's the problem with RID car robots Megatron. He does have 10 modes, but only I'd say about 3 of them are meaningful: the robot, the jet, and the double-headed dragon. All of the others, they do just look like the robot mode folded into a different shape. It looks as if the designers have sat there with the robots and yeah, you can fold it up like that. That's a mode. That's a mode. We'll market that as a mode. These guys, the Generation 1 triple changes, they're not always terribly successful either, but at the very least each of the modes is meaningful. You can definitely see just by looking at the modes that some considerable thought has gone into designing them and accommodating the other modes around them. This one is one of the earliest. This is Blitzwing, Generation 1 Blitzwing, a name that animated fans should know. This is the original guy. And he's a very, very cool toy indeed, actually. He's part of the second wave of Gen 1, when there were lots of slightly more experimental molds coming out. Things like the Triple Changers, Metroplex, the City Formers, Galvatron, and some of the newer combiners, the Stunticons and the Aerial Bots, and those kinds of things. They were getting more gimmicky as time went along. And the triple changes are without a doubt one of the more successful gimmicks. The first wave triple changes are generally quite good. There are one or two real clunkers, the ones that really don't succeed. Broadside, the Autobot Broadside is without a doubt the most conspicuous example of this. Most of his modes are terrible, particularly the jet mode. The jet mode is abysmally bad. But the Decepticons, I don't know why, the Decepticons are generally more successful with triple changes. And this guy is one of the prime examples of a Generation 1 triple changer. Every single mode he's got is coherent and has a minimal amount of kibble from the other modes. I mean, this is his tank mode, which is my least favourite of his modes, but there's nothing wrong with it, to say that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just a bog standard Transformer tank mode, and it's really, really well done. The only indication of the other modes comes at the front there, where you can clearly see the jet mode cockpit here, and if you look underneath, he's got a bit of GoBot syndrome going on with the visible face there. But considering that he's going to be rolling along like that most of the time, that really doesn't matter. His turret is articulated, it will turn. And he rolls along he doesn't have working tank treads, obviously. I mean, this is a Generation 1 toy. You can't expect real working tank treads on a Generation 1. He's just got these little wheels here that he rolls along on quite happily. He's also a lovely colour scheme. All of the Generation 1 Pretenders are... Pretenders? No. triple changes, all of the Generation 1 Decepticon triple changes are more or less the same colour schemes. They all incorporate greys, this sort of lovely tan colour, purples and metallics. So when you've got them all together, they look very coherent as a squad, which is nice. In terms of character, there's nothing terribly remarkable about Blitzwing, to be honest. In all of the continuities in which he appears, he's just a rank and file grunt. He's a commando, and that's it. He's a warrior, and there's not much else to him. He's a bit of a braggart. He's a bit full of himself. He's quite simple-minded. He can be very easily swayed by propaganda material and whatnot, which is probably why he joined the Decepticons in the first place. The only notable thing he ever does, really, is probably in the Generation 1 cartoon in the 3rd season, when he demonstrates a pretty dogmatic loyalty to Galvatron when the Quintessons turn up and try to tempt the Decepticons into helping them with offerings of Energon, and Blitzwing refuses them, and as a result he gets kicked out of the Decepticons ultimately. I mean, his loyalty doesn't pay off very well, and we never see him again in the cartoon season. That's it. But there we are. That's Blitzwing in his tank mode, and it's really, really good. It's very coherent. Right, I'm going to transform him now into what I think is his best mode, the jet mode. And I think you'll see why I like it so much. Anyway, transformation time. And there we have Blitzwing in his jet mode. Now what's so impressive about this is that if you didn't know any better, you could easily mistake that for a different transformer, which is the hallmark of a damn good triple changer, I think. If you cannot tell what its other modes are, then I think it succeeded pretty well. And the fact that it's also such a brilliantly designed jet. It looks a lot better actually than a lot of its Generation 1 contemporaries like the Seeker jets and whatnot. It's much more coherent than they are, and it hangs together much better as well. It doesn't have bits that fly off at every opportunity. The only bit of kibble left over from the tank is that. Unfortunately, there is no way they could have gotten rid of that, the tank turret. However, it does function rather well in this mode as a sort of secondary gun, just slung underneath, so it still has function, which is nice. Which makes this his most heavily armed mode of the lot, because he does have the very fucking annoying firing missiles in the side. And I tell you what, it takes little more than a strong breath to make those fly out. They're very annoying indeed. I've actually disabled the firing mechanism of mine so that they will never fire. Those missiles will never come out again. But yes, that is a hugely successful mode, and considering that it's a triple changer is quite phenomenal, really. The fact that it looks better than a lot of jet formers that are not triple changers, that only have a jet and a robot mode, and also if you compare it to the jet mode of the animated Blitzwing. I mean, I do like animated Blitzwing a lot. I think it's a fairly cool toy and I like what they do with the character, but its jet mode has that hideous undercarriage here where you can just see tank and nothing else. It makes it look like a tank with a cockpit and wings, which is very annoying. This is a more coherent jet mode, and considering that this comes from 1985, that's a bit of a damning indictment, really. He's very heavy, Blitzwing. That's nice. There's loads of die-cast metal on him. Almost his entire body here is die-cast metal. And these wings are almost 100% die-cast as well, which is nice. Lovely, lovely decals all over him. And he shows a lot more purple in this mode, which is very cool. I mean, purple is the quintessential Decepticon colour, obviously, so it's always nice to see it. Right then, on to his final mode, the robot. And there we have Generation 1 Blitzwing in his robot mode. Now, I actually really rather like the robot mode. It's slightly clunky, big and boxy, very, very typical of a Generation 1 Transformer of its time. And although it does have lots of indications of its other modes, they don't really detract from the overall look of the robot. In fact, they prevent it from looking too generic. I mean, he does have a very generic little head there, and his stance is pretty typical for a Transformer of this period, as his overall design, really. But thanks to the jet mode wings and the turret coming up behind him, it just helps to make him look really rather distinct. I like his odd little feet, the way the tail fins of the jet become his feet. I really rather like that. I think it's rather inventive. But yes, I would heavily recommend this, especially if you can get the other Decepticon triple changers to go with him. The weakest of them is Octane, without a doubt. Octane with his infamous Transformer tits. Yeah, you'll see what I mean if I ever manage to do Octane. But there we are. Generation 1 Blitzwing. Highly recommended.